Okay, for the past 48 hours, I've been trying to figure out how to get my AEM wideband to show up in the RTLS1 using the EGR or position input or voltage input, which is on this is a P59. So on the blue connector, pin 55 is positive and pin 41 is negative. So that's what you'll use for the AEM. It's a, I guess you'd call it a differential output on the AEM, or balanced output, I think is what they would call it. Anyways, there is a wideband setting in the RTLS1, but it doesn't reference the EGR. I'm not exactly sure where it references, but anyways, I got this on the bench. The AEM says it outputs between 0.5 volts and 4.5 volts, and that should correspond with, as far as AFR, it should be 8.5 to 18 is what it says. I paused because I'm just thinking, well, I could also add a graph for lambda too, because I'd like to learn how to tune with lambda as well. So I may add that, especially if we start doing E85. Anyways, so I've got it set up here, bench power supply. This says 0.5 volt. I don't necessarily trust that, so I've also got a fluke back there that's hooked up, and you can see this wideband's bouncing around 8.5. Let me see if I can move this meter so you can see that and the RTLS1 at the same time. This doesn't mess up. All right. Try to balance the glare. All right, I'm gonna start increasing voltage. Oh, I paused it. I hit something on the keyboard that it did not like. So let's see, log, no, log. All right, let's see if I can do this without hitting a button on the keyboard. Okay, that looks like it's still working. Zoom in, maybe that'll help. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go back down to 0.5 volt. So technically this will read lower, all the way down to 7.3. That's what my offset is. 0.5. 0.5 volts should be 8.5 to 1. You can see it's bouncing right around there. All right, so I'm gonna slowly increase. Should probably double check these numbers. It's actually, well, we'll go up to, I've not checked the numbers in between. I've just checked the 5 and 4.5. So we'll check that together. Oop, overshot it. Everything's so touchy. Even the fine-tuned knob is touchy. As you can see, it's right at 18.00 to 1 at 4.5 volts. All right, so let's check what AEM has to say about the numbers between. So for instance, at 0.75 volts, we should have 9.9, or let's go backwards, 4.25. So 4.2, I'm making adjustments. Don't mind the mess on my bench. It always looks like this. What did I say, 4.25? Yeah, I was trying to do 4.225. Alright, that's probably as close as we're gonna get. And at 4.25, we should have 17.41. Man, I hope this works. I have not checked this. Oh, it stopped logging. I can tell because nothing's moving. The cable that I have, this cable is not, it's like not good, and I keep hitting it with my hand, knocking it loose. Log. Let's see. 17.4. And what were we supposed to have? 17.1. Oh no, that's right. 17.41. I'm so happy. All right, let's go down. Let's jump down to 3.75, and that should be 16.2. So we'll just skip a little bit. Oh, I'm so happy that matches. That means my factor is correct, which we'll get into that in a minute. I'll show you where to change that. 3.75. So we should have approximately 16.2. And boom. Oh, this is so awesome. So this means once you have the address for other inputs, you could add things to this like fuel pressure or boost pressure, which I guess you have on the map sensor, but you could add a boost pressure sensor to some input that you're not using and read it from there. So let's just look at something on the other end here. Let's go to 1.5 volts. 1.5, we should have 10.88 to 1. So 1.5 volts. Get it dialed in. That's close. 1.5 is 10.88. And we're right at 10.86. That's close enough. And you know, this is not exactly on 1.5 either, so that's probably our discrepancy there. I spent a lot of time dialing this in down to the decimal, so it's, I don't know that you could get it any closer than, maybe if you took it out to the hundreds. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. When we look at the units and the elements. Yeah, so we're at 15.0 and it's bouncing at like 14.87. It dropped. When this was hitting 1.5, it was bouncing at 10.88. Yeah, so now we're at 10.87, 10.88, and it's like 1.49. So there it is. Yeah, 10.88, 1.501. So it's not, the power supply is not perfect, and I've noticed the output on the AEM bounces around even more than that. Like it, I don't know if it's the sensor or the system itself. Okay, let's look at how we got here. So in the elements, this is the main thing you're gonna have to change, is the hex address. And so it's 5 Fs, a 2 C, and 0. That's the EGR pin 55 EGR input. Leave inverted to true, upper bound and lower bound. I don't know if I changed that or not. I haven't messed with that. But you could add a new element. So this element was already here and it had a different address that I have saved somewhere. I don't remember what it was. Actually, I posted it here. The original ad, this is what it read before. Okay, so yeah, I did change the upper bound. It was 18. I could probably change that back. I don't know, it's working fine. I'm gonna leave it as it is. So it used to be FFFF9B2C. I don't know what that reads, but Richard told me that this is set up to read the wideband directly put into the is this Cat6 or Cat6 cable, or Ethernet cable, I guess is what you call it. So that might be what that address is. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, so you technically could add a new element if you wanted to. If you go to the bottom, you just copy this exactly and name it element number 74, and you could give it whatever name you wanted. Instead of wideband, you could call it AEM or lambda, whatever you wanted to do. That's going to be my next project, is adding an element that is lambda, which I know how to do it now. It's just going to be figuring out the factor. So your element is going to be where it's looking for. This is your graph, and you're telling it where to look for the data. And then your units, which is in the config file as well. It's an INI file. Let me back up to elements. So your elements, so it has unit name. So it's looking at wideband units to convert that data to something that shows up as a usable number in your graphs. So here, we'll go back to units. So it's looking at wideband units, or the unit ID W, which is WB_units. So I had to change this. The factor was originally set at -125, and the offset was something, I don't remember. To get it to read correctly, I had to change the factor to 86 and the offset to 7.3. So factor is the multiplication or division, and offset is addition or subtraction. So you can see the operation is set to div. I guess that means division for factor. When I first looked it up and it was set to -125, it was reading, the numbers were way off, but it was reading backwards. And I'm guessing it was because the factor was negative. So when the AFR would go up, the number on the real time would go down. But this seems to make it work perfectly, as you can see. Trying to think if there's anything else. This information is not out there. There's not a lot of people running this RTLS1, I guess. There's not a lot of people talking about it. I think it's going to be a great tool. I'm really excited to dig into it and add some more usable features to it. I think it, combined with Bubba's BoostOS, is probably, just based on what I know, which isn't very much, one of the most powerful tuning platforms for the P01 and P59, and maybe even would compete with aftermarket things like Holly and etc. From everything I can see, it is more capable than what you could do with like HP tuners or something like that. But there's not as much support out there. So a lot of what you find in HP tuners, people talking about HP tuners, ton of information out there. You can get just about any question answered. The RTLS1 and BoostOS, not so much. So Bubba has a Patreon. I just signed up. I don't really know how to use Patreon, so I just signed up, and I guess I need to subscribe to be able to get, oh yeah, here's me looking at things in HP. I'm trying to get my truck to idle, and it's not going great, but this will help. Yeah, I don't have it pulled up. There is yeah, I need to subscribe to his Patreon so I can get some support for BoostOS, and hopefully he can help me sort some tuning issues out. But there you go. If you're going to be running RTLS1, I think this is something everyone is going to need to know, because you're going to want to log that wideband with your other data, and unless you know what that other address is, I don't. And I asked Richard, I haven't heard back from him yet what the original wideband address is, but if you're going to run BoostOS, I think Bubba has wideband closed loop fueling set up to read through EGR pin 55. So this is what you're going to want to do if you're going to want to use that feature, which I'll have to, because that's the only O2 sensor I have. So there you go. Hopefully this helps the 1 or 2 other people out there that are doing this. Let me know if you have any questions or feedback. Thanks. Bye.